Hello Warcraft community, we got some news to share with you. Oh yeah. Since the departure of Pete Stilwell in early 2021, nobody really knows who's in charge of the Warcraft team and what the Warcraft team really is. Today, we got some answers. So let me break down the story for you real quick and then we might analyze what this all means in the long run. As you all know, there's currently patch 1.33 on the PTR. That includes the ladder that we all want for such a long time and also some changes to the world editor that the modding community is using to create new maps and campaigns for us. So the issue is there's a lot of bugs in the editor and it's basically unusable at the moment. So the modding community went on to Twitter, in the forefront, Insane Monster, and he reached out to Mike Ybarra, the president of Blizzard, who you know from former news reports, who was breaking the story that there will be news in June about Warcraft 3, which we got, and sometimes he is answering to some of the community members, and he is basically the only one at Blizzard who's doing so. So Insane Monster is now on Twitter. He's the creator of the Reforged campaign that is quite famous actually. So he went on to Twitter saying, "Hey Quick," that is the nickname of Mike Ybarra, "I'm one of the many map makers currently very active in the Warcraft 3 community. Many of us are concerned about 1.33 going to production. The editor is in a very unstable and hard to work with state. May we have some communication on these issues from the team." This was also echoed by designer Dave, a former Blizzard employee, who said, yeah, this should probably be fixed, basically. And this was also echoed by another user who then got an answer from Mike Ybarra. And that was when a bomb dropped here. Corporal Glenn Arden Doggy says, "Hey, Quick, may I ask you to fix the concern about the custom popcorn effects crashing on the 1.33 editor in Warcraft 3 Reforged, and as well as implementing actual quick-cast hotkeys, other than the fact that the editor is currently unstable and hard to work with." Mike Ybarra replies, "There's likely a correct mechanism process to submit feedback for it. That was done previously in the Battle.net forums, and this was also directed to some community management persons at Blizzard. At the Windstalker runs the team, but the best way for the feedback is to submit it via the correct process." So, in charge of Warcraft 3 is Holly Longdale, aka the Windstalker. Holly Longdale is the executive producer for World of Warcraft. I think in specific, World of Warcraft Classic. This was announced quite some time ago, I think in April. Yeah, at the end of April. As she tweeted, "I'm beyond excited to take the role as executive producer of World of Warcraft. It's an honor to work with this team in these games. My heart is full. Cheers to the future. We will continue to build together, both players and the teams." You may also know her, if you're interested in that, from the reveal video of the latest World of Warcraft expansion Dragonflight, where she's here on the left-hand side and she is named as the lead producer for World of Warcraft Classic, with John Hyde being the higher up here as the franchise's general manager. So, Holly Longdale, according to the president of Blizzard, in charge of Warcraft 3. This is pretty interesting, because this means that Warcraft 3 is no longer associated with the development teams of Starcraft 2, Starcraft Remastered, and Heroes of the Storm, but rather under the umbrella of the Warcraft franchise. And there's been some indicators of that earlier. For example, there was a job listing that was looking for lead designer for the Warcraft franchise. And that specifically stated the Warcraft franchise team is looking for a full-time lead designer for Warcraft 3 Reforged and World of Warcraft. We broke the story earlier. I think this was in February. This was the first indicator that Warcraft 3 is part of the Warcraft franchise. And then this was probably the job listing for Holly Longdale's job here as executive producer of Warcraft 3, even though Warcraft 3 of World of Warcraft, even though Warcraft 3 is not mentioned here. It's cool to see that we have actual people and people to talk to and reach out to when we are in need, just like the custom game community, the user-generated content community is at the moment because the editor is not usable currently. So now we got Mike Ybarra, who just randomly replies to some tweets he's getting. He's never replying to us or to Grubby, I guess, but just out of nowhere. And this almost feels a little bit like doxing, throwing the name out there, because it has been 2.5 years since the Reforged launch, where we had no idea who the team is, what the team is doing, who's leading the team. There was Rob Breidenbecker before, there was Pete Stilwell before, but since then, they're all gone. Nobody was talking and nobody was shown his or her face. That has changed now. So, what does this mean? I don't know. What's really curious to me is, why did we separate Warcraft 3 from Starcraft, both Starcraft titles, and Hero of the Storm? Why is it part of the Warcraft franchise now? This is curious. This is really curious. It goes into a right direction again, even though it's not perfect. And this goes into quite a few instances where this is the case. The current PTR is a step in the right direction. The president communicating is a step in the right direction. Is the PTR everything we want? Definitely not. Is it the right way of communication that the president of a company is doing the user interaction, the community management for the title? Also, not necessarily. There should be a team, there should be a community manager that we interact with. Maybe with Holly Longdale's name out there, she's willing to talk. Grubby already reached out. We already reached out. So hopefully we will have some interaction now. Holly Longdale was previously in charge of EverQuest and EverQuest 2 and apparently did a pretty nice job in monetizing classic games. And of course also in charge of classic WoW, so she knows a little bit about monetizing older games. This doesn't necessarily mean something bad, that Warcraft 3 is alongside or is under the umbrella of World of Warcraft, even though it's two very different games. The lead designer can probably still manage 2 to 3, the executive, I mean, can work on 2 to 3 titles at the same time if there is manpower and coding power. But this is it. We finally have a face to a team, and Holly Longdale is leading it, and that's the big news here today. John High still also somewhat involved in this as the franchise's general manager, but the big takeaway here is Warcraft 3 is part of the Warcraft franchise and we should treat it as such. So no longer big comparisons to the developments in Starcraft, Starcraft 2 and Heroes of the Storm, but rather how much time is there in a World of Warcraft team to do something for Warcraft 3. Is there an expansion coming up very, very soon? Is it crunch time already? Then Warcraft 3 will probably have a very, very low priority. Is there time for it? Then people might work on Warcraft 3 as a low priority title in the franchise. Alright, that's the news, that's the developments. Welcome Holly Longdale to the community. And hopefully off to a bright future together. See ya for more news, hopefully soon.